Hey folks, Russ Bailey here. It's time for another BrushPile Fishing, the video podcast. And as always, we've got a great guest in store, a good friend of mine. I've known him for years. We fished together, done shows together, super guy. One of the best guides on Weiss Lake by far. Mr. Darrell Baker is going to join us. So you stay tuned. We'll be right back with BrushPile Fishing, the podcast. All right, folks, welcome back to BrushPile Fishing. We've got another video podcast, and as you can see, we've got a great guest today, my good friend, Darrell Baker. Darrell, how are we doing this morning?
Russ, it's great to be with you. We're doing great down here in Alabama. It's a beautiful day, and the weather's changing. Unfortunately, I'm not on the water today, but that's going to change. We'll be back out tomorrow.
Tell you what, brother, it's nice and cool here. Our nights for this week have been in the low 40s. And high of about 70. Fall fishing is right around the corner, and that's what we're going to talk about there on Weiss Lake.
Well, it's pretty much the same here. I know that can be a little bit different for what it's like where you're at, but temperatures 70s, maybe bumping 80 during the day. Our lows at night are getting into the 40s, but the water temperature is slowly creeping down. I've been on the water the last couple of days. Water temperatures still around 70 in the morning, getting up 72 in the afternoon. So that's kind of put us in a little transition area. The fish, they're beginning to bite, but they're just not aggressive.
Gotcha. You know, and Darrell, I want to give you a special thanks for you folks at home. Darrell just got his wisdom teeth pulled out yesterday, and he's still a guest on the show today. How you doing with that, man?
You know, actually, I'm doing a lot better. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be, pretty swelled up and stuff like that, and in a lot of pain. But it's tolerable. It really is.
Did you get them all four cut out?
No, actually, just one.
Oh, see, you're not a real man. Real men, we get them all four at the same time.
Well, that was actually the only one left. So I got rid of that yesterday.
Well, Darrell, one of the things, and anyone that knows me knows that I've said this before, there are a lot of great crappie lakes in the country, but my favorite place to be is still Weiss Lake. I love dock shooting, but the friends I've made over the years, the people down there, Tony Steak Barn, that always helps too. But there's so many different ways to fish. I know in the spring you like long lining, changes a little bit from bottom bouncing in the fall to fishing brush piles. A couple years ago, I was there and I did a show with Carlton Teague, and it was hotter than snot still, but it was in the fall, and we hit some brush piles, and we whacked them. I mean, every brush pile we went to, it was probably 6, 7, 8 fish per pile. And as that water cools down, then they move under the docks. And, that's one of my favorite ways to fish. But what are you doing right now on your guide trips?
Right now, the fall is kind of a versatile time. October, November, and into December is the actual season. We start in October. October, you can use one of two methods. You can do the bottom bouncing like you were just talking about, or you could do your favorite method and mine, the shooting docks. That will last usually into the first part of November. At that point, sometimes the dock shooting will kind of fade away due to water temperatures. And of course, in the past, Weiss Lake has always dropped 6 feet in the winter. So usually by the first part of November, a lot of the docks that we are shooting, there's not enough water on them as well, and that pulls the fish off. And then when we move on into November, it's more of a bottom bouncing only. And then as you get into December, you can do the bottom bouncing, or you can also go to do some long line trolling, usually from, say, Thanksgiving on, depending on water temperatures. Now, how is it going to change a little bit this year? We're not real sure. Dock shooting could be a technique that we use well into November this year, depending on water temperatures, because Alabama Power has just signed with the Army Corps of Engineers their new plan for the next 50 years. Weiss Lake will no longer drop 6 feet in the winter. it's only going down 3 feet from this point on. So those docks that normally would have 2 to 3 feet of water on them will now have 6 feet of water on them. So that could be a game changer for us. And
Sure.
that could actually make that method last longer into the month of November. So we're looking forward to that.
Now, when you start your dock shooting in the fall, do you look for that water temperature to be a certain degree when you hit that heavy?
I really, really like it. Seems like they're a lot more aggressive once the water temperatures get into the low to mid 60s. That is the prime time. Yesterday, or day before yesterday, when I was on the water, 72 degrees in the afternoon. Still needs to drop about 10 degrees. The bite right now, of course, with all the electronics, where the fish are. These docks are loaded with fish. They're just not doing anything. The bite is extremely light on the docks. When we would shoot the dock, counting it down a little bit, the line would just lay down. You never felt the bite. You had to be a line watcher or you wasn't catching fish.
Now that'll change as that water cools down, though, because I know that, man, we've had some fall trips there where they almost take the rod out of your hand and that line just jumps like lightning. That's coming up, though, man. We haven't missed that yet.
And it's not far away, probably in the next couple of weeks. But right now, we're just not quite to that point. That's the way it is, on the dock shooting. But, out on the ledges, fishing those brush piles, bottom bouncing, it's the same way. Those fish are still really, really tight to the cover, and the bite is very light. You may see your line move just an inch or two one way or the other. They're not just jerking the rod and, bringing the rod tip down in the water like an aggressive bite is. So
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what style or technique you're using right now. It is super, super light, and that's all due to water temperatures right now in Weiss.
Darrell, one of the things that I've always found kind of unique or different, a lot of lakes where they long line in the spring and the summer, you can do the same thing in the fall, but that's not a big pattern at Weiss. In the spring, it's huge, but in the fall, you don't see as many people do it. Why is that down there?
Well, we have found that as you get on from Thanksgiving, from that point on, seems like the long lining is starting to come around a little bit more. Usually that's based on a lot of water temperature. If we can find water temperatures in the 50s, those fish will start to get in the coves and you can catch them long lining. And we catch a lot of fish in the month of December long lining the small jigs.
Well, even this fall now, like you say, right now it's the unknown, but it's going to be interesting to see if those coves have 3 foot more water than they normally do in the fall, that maybe that long line bite could turn on even earlier than December. And
it actually could. Couple of days this week, as I was idling out from the marina, I was side scanning, looking around in the coves on my way to shoot docks, and the coves right now are loaded with fish. I actually made the comment to one of my clients the other day that I think we could catch some fish right now long line. The only thing to that is the bite is very light, so I don't know if they would be up for chasing that bait right now. That would be the only drawback.
Gotcha. Folks, we're talking to Darrell Baker, guide, Weiss Lake Crappie Guides down in Weiss Lake, Alabama, one of my favorite places in the world. Darrell, if someone's interested in booking a trip, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, Russ, they can find me on the web at weisslakecrappieguides.com. There they can go to the contact us page. They can fill out the information there, and it will shoot an email to me. They can tell me all their information, plus tell me what kind of dates they're looking for. Right there, send me an email, or they can, my phone number is listed on the web. They can reach me on it. But weisslakecrappieguides.com is the best way to get a hold of me.
There you go. Now, Darrell, not only on Weiss, but Neely Henry offers some great dock shooting in the fall. And I know you've guided on both. And Neely actually do they still have a 9-inch limit there?
They do, Russ. And, I was actually Monday and Tuesday this week, I was on the water. Monday, fished with the same guy. On Monday, we fished Neely Henry and we shot docks. We did one day there, and the next day we shot here at Weiss. I'm going to give you a little bit of how we done on both. We used the same baits both places, the same method held as far as targeting the docks. Most of the docks, 8 to 10 feet of water off the front, did better. All of them were just loaded with fish, but the bite extremely light. Very seldom did we ever feel the bite. We caught them being a line watcher. Now, with a 10-inch limit at Weiss, we had 12 keepers Tuesday.
Really?
We caught probably 40 fish, but we only had 12. We could see them. We just couldn't get them to bite. On Monday, we fished at Neely Henry. We were able to keep 9-inch fish or larger, and we had around 37. But we only had about half and half fish there in the 9 to 10-inch range, or 10 inches or bigger. So it's about the same, as far as if you was keeping just 10-inch fish, we did about the same at Weiss and Neely.
Folks, if you are not a dock shooter or something you want to try, one of the things that you do, it's basically taking your jig, pulling it back almost like a bow and arrow and shooting. You're getting back into those areas a lot of people won't be able to if they're just hitting the edges of the docks. The Darrell, I like using a 4-pound high vis. Of course, we have slime line. And then I'll tell you, man, so Crappie Magnet, they sponsor our show, and they've got several types of jigs or plastics. And I always liked the slab curly, big curly tail for that. But I'm telling you, I started using just a regular Crappie Magnet, which looks like it won't do anything. Man, I have been nailing them under pontoons with that. They also have some new ones coming out that I think is going to be awesome with a little paddle tail. But now you like basically using one size jig head for this. What is that?
Russ, I fish a 1/24th.
I knew it.
That is extremely hard to find. I know. And a lot of people, they know if they come to Weiss, they better have some in their box. We buy them locally. There are a company or two now that are starting to make those, and you can find them. But most people just buy them once they get here. I have started fishing that 1/24th years ago. It falls just a little bit slower than the 16th, but a little faster than the 32nd. It's right in between, and it seems to work great on the Coosa River chain.
And if I remember correctly, about 95% of yours are painted red.
95?
Is it up to 100?
Actually, I can't say that. I've actually started using a few silver heads, and also actually had some neon yellow or neon green painted up. But predominantly, I like the ones.
I won't believe that until I see them on your boat, man.
Well, I just started using them this past week.
We'll turn that down. So Darrell, the other thing, we talked about this in the opening, Tony's Steak Barn. For the folks that have never been to Weiss, man, you got to go there. What nights are they open?
They're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday only. And Russ, they take cash and they take debit credit cards.
Folks, a couple years back, we go down to shoot a show. We had some issues with a boat, and Darrell was nice enough to just tote us all around to different mechanics and getting all the stuff we had to. So Joe and I thought we would be nice guys and buy him Tony's Steak Barn. We go there, and at the time, we just had credit cards. We say we didn't know better, but we get in there, and all they took at the time was cash. So not only did Darrell get the privilege of toting us around all day, but then he got to buy our supper too. Darrell, I appreciate that, man.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I didn't mind at all, Russ. We had a great time out on the lake shooting docks and filming that show. So, that was my way of saying thanks, buddy.
But they do take credit cards now?
They do.
Well, then I think when I come down this fall, I'm going to treat you to McDonald's. How's that?
Hey, they take debit cards as well.
Darrell, hey, I tell you what, man, anything else you want to add, buddy?
Well, Russ, the fall is a great time to fish down here at Weiss, whether you want to shoot docks whether you want to bottom bounce, whether you want to troll. You can pretty much pick your method. You just have to pick the time of the year that you want to do that. As I said earlier, if you're into dock shooting, it's more of an October event. Bottom bouncing runs the entire season, fishing those ledges. And Russ, one thing I wanted to show you for the folks that we were talking about the bottom bouncing rig.
Right.
I've got one tied up right here. I don't know if you can actually see this or not on that. What we're doing is we're just taking a snail hook and we're tying it off. And I did this for show. I normally tie it a little bit longer. I was wanting to be able to get it in on the computer screen. But I usually, from the hook down to my sinker or weight, I usually like to use 12 to 18 inches. This one is only tied up about 6 inches so you can see it. But I use the 12-pound line in the fall on this bottom bouncing rig. That's to get it out of the brush. I tie my snail hook right here. It's just a hook on a leader. And for those that don't know what the snail hook is, you can buy them by the packs at any store around the area. I tie that about 12 inches above my weight, and you're ready to go. You drop it down. You're wanting the weight to hit the bottom, and you can feel that when it takes the pressure off. You know you're on the bottom. What that does, if this is hitting the bottom, this is just off the bottom, and your live bait is swimming up here. And that's where the fish will get it. It will actually keep you from getting hung up as much because your hook is up off the bottom. Occasionally you'll get hung, and it will be just the weight that is getting caught in the brush. A lot of people want to set the hook right then, and they wind up really getting hung up in the brush. A little bit of finesse. Just take that rod tip, just shake it just a little bit, and usually that rig will come right out of the brush. I use it on that the 12-pound test line, because the brush can be so thick. If you're using 6-pound line on these rods, you're going to tie hooks and weights all day. So we like to use that heavier line, and it pulls it out of the brush. You can bend that hook right back, put another minnow on, drop it right back down. So, that's one thing. If you're going to come and do the bottom bouncing, put some heavier line on it. We have, a lot of folks would call it stained water. That's what we refer to it as. If you can see your bait 12 to 16, 18 inches down at Weiss, it's clear for us. I know some of you guys fish some really clear water where you can see down 6 feet. You can use this high vis line that you touched on earlier. For those, that is pretty bright. And that right there is what we use. This will not spook the fish at Weiss. A lot of people don't want to use it because they are worried it's going to scare the fish or whatever. Due to water clarity, that doesn't bother it, but that will help you see the lightest bites as well. A lot of times when you're bottom bouncing, you'll just see that line move an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches if on a light bite. And so you have to be a line watcher as well. And of course, you're looking for that thump, as you said earlier on that. That's when it really gets good, when they'll just about pull the rod out of your hand. So if you're going to come, make sure you've got the equipment set up when you get here, and you'll have a lot better trip, because you will have your rods lined with the 12-pound line. Works great for that. Like I said, if you come with smaller line to bottom bounce, you're going to go through a lot of hooks, weights, and baits. That's for sure.
I remember the last time that you and I bottom bounced. I don't remember if we were doing a show or fishing for fun, but I remember, man, we caught a bunch of crappie that day. That was a really, really nice technique right out in front of Bay Springs.
That's right. We did. Actually, I think we were shooting a show in the fall of the year.
Yep.
And those ledges, it's the Coosa River. Of course, there's 3 rivers that make up Weiss, the Chattooga, Little River, and of course the Coosa is the main one. So you have ledges on all 3 of those, and these crappie hold on those every year in the fall. There, you get out there. If you use your electronics, find the brush, find the stumps, you're going to find the crappie on Weiss Lake.
Yes, sir. Well, Darrell, I appreciate.
Bouncing is a great way on any of those 3 rivers.
And again, folks, WeissLakeCrappieGuides.com. That's the website. He's also on Facebook. He gave you his phone number, or contact us here at BrushPile Fishing. We'll get you in touch with him. He is also on the BrushPile app. That is completely free, folks, for your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android, completely free. It's a super, super app, does a lot of things. It's got a fishing log in there. So every day you fish, you can put down what you used, how many you caught, water temperature, whatever, and it stores that for you. We also have a section called guides that we fished with, guides we recommend. Darrell has his own page. You can actually check him out, his bio, and then click on it. It'll take you straight to his phone number and it'll call him for you. So check out the BrushPile app. And before we take off, Darrell, I got a couple more things I want to let the folks know about. This first one's kind of a serious issue, folks. As you noticed, a couple weeks ago, we had a walleye tournament on Lake Erie, which walleye tournaments are big. The money's big. And we had a couple fellas that got caught cheating. We're not going to give them their names on here because I'm not going to give them any more fame than they've already have. But it's infamous, to be honest. But these guys were putting sinkers, and they cut up other walleye fillets, wrapped those around the sinkers, and then stuffed everything in the fish so they wouldn't make a noise. They got caught. And a couple things that come to mind on this. The first of all is the widespread media attention that it got. This was on Fox News, CNN News. I listened to the Dan Patrick Sports Show. It was on there. The videos, of course, have went viral on every outlet you can. But here's the thing. When something bad happens, you hear about it everywhere, and like you did in this situation. But to me, this is a lot like police work. Anytime, and there are bad cops, just like there are dirty fishermen. Anytime, a bad cop does something, that's the only part you hear about, and that's all over social media. That's 0.5% of the cops that are on the road in the country that are doing a great job. You never hear about that. You never hear about now with this tournament angler, you see that these guys cheated and it's all over everything. So now, all the jokes come out about us all are cheaters and this and that. 99.9% of tournament anglers are great people. They come from all walks of life. Some of them are farmers, doctors, lawyers, police officers, firemen. They come from everywhere. And like I say, most of them are the most straight up people in the world. And to me, these idiots were not competitors. They were not true anglers, because I want to tell you, folks, I don't fish tournaments anymore. But when I used to, I loved tournament fishing back then. The money was secondary. I was lucky enough. I won some tournaments. The money was secondary. And I'll tell you what I mean about that. We fished a tournament back then. We used to get 200 plus boats in the tournaments back in the crappie thon days. And we got to fish. Sean Finke and I, we fished a tournament where we actually won the tournament, and Captain Coleman was in that. And I'll never forget the feeling. It's like, man, we just beat most dominant team that's ever been in crappie fishing, in my opinion. And that was more important than the money, the feeling I got inside. Well, these idiots know all these tournaments they won, and there's no proof they cheated in other ones, but I'm a police officer. I'm skeptical. I'm going to say they did. They know in their own hearts they didn't win anything. So they're not a true angler. They're not a true competitor. Part two of this, I feel bad for their sponsors, because all of the videos going around, of course, they were in their jerseys. So all the sponsors on there, let me rest you assured, those sponsors had no idea these guys were doing this stuff. Okay. So again, please, whatever you do, keep them out of it, because they are the ones that keep this sports going, and they wouldn't have wanted that. So I feel bad for the sponsors. The other thing is, and we wanted to get a podcast going with the tournament director. I want to tell him, you did a great job. You can hear in the video where the guys were pretty heated. That could have got out of hand physically, very easy. You heard the tournament director several times say, we're not going to touch these guys. We're going to escort them out of here, but we are not laying a hand on them. So hats off to him. Last I heard, they are turning this over to law enforcement, to the prosecutor's office. So hopefully they get charged because this is a very serious crime, especially when you're talking $30,000 on the line, and who knows what they have taken in money before where they've done some of these techniques. So I wanted to touch on that. Tournament fishing's getting huge. The payouts are getting huge. One of the things, Matt Morgan, when he started the ACT, Matt was a former national champion. When he started to run the ACT, he realized that if you are going to be a tournament director where you've got that much money you're giving out, you can't be the competitor in that tournament anymore. So hats off to him. I remember when I ran a Buckeye Crappie Challenge, once we started getting a really good payout, as much as I love tournament fishing, I quit tournament fishing at that point and just ran the trail. So there's things we can do to give us a clear image, not put doubt in people's mind. But I just want to touch on that a little bit because, like I say, these guys, in my heart, they are not competitors. And we'll leave it at that. The last thing I want to talk about, and Darrell, you know about this, some of you guys that are close to me or whatever, follow our BrushPile page. That my cameraman for years, I've had several cameramen when we started, but then that one guy, Joe, the camera guy, got stuck with us, and I kind of got stuck with him for the last many, many years. And Joe has taken a different turn in life. He's going a different route. So he's not going to be with BrushPile anymore. But I just want to say that it has been an absolute ball. Me and Joe did a lot of miles together on the road, and you got to be able to get along with somebody if you're doing as much traveling as we did. Had a great time. We both had strong personalities when it came to the show. There were times we butted heads a little bit, but the thing was, when it was done, we had a cup of coffee, and it was over with, whether he won the argument or I did. But man, it was just absolutely outstanding traveling all these years with him. And the most important thing, Joe did everything for our show. I mean, he did the drone work, he did the camera work, and then he came back and produced the shows. And I've always told people, two things that I think make our show most successful is A, Joe's job that he does, and B, the guests that we have. The guests make our show. And I think those two things sets us apart from other fishing shows. So I just want to say, Joe had many nicknames. Matt, we talked about Matt Morgan. He always thought that Joe looked like the Unabomber. So that was his nickname, was Unabomber. And then we were down at a media camp, and Joe caught a crappie, his biggest one, was 216. So there for a while was Joe 216. But I think everybody in the crappie industry, and I know you, Darrell, he was Joe the camera guy. Joe the camera guy. He'll always be that. And Joe, if you're out there, I just wish you absolutely the best in whatever you do, brother. It's been a great ride. Love you, man. Darrell, he's no longer on our show, but we have great memories.
Oh, we had a blast. The times that I shot shows with you and he filmed. I remember days even when he wasn't filming, he was just out there fishing with us and having a good time. Just a great all around guy. If you never got a chance to meet him, hopefully you will at some point, because he's one you'll never forget. I mean, he was a great guy, great personality, and just fun to be around. Always looking to have a good time.
And actually, it was him that stiffed you for dinner, not me, man.
Well, I tell you what, I'll forgive him.
All right.
I'll hold the grudge on.
All right, Darrell. Hey, man, as always, it is super talking with you. Appreciate you joining us on the podcast.
Hey, man, it's been a pleasure. Anytime I get a chance to be either film with you or be part of your show in any way, man, I love it. I love being able to give information and just be a part of a good thing that you've got going. I love the show, love the broadcast. So anytime you need me to give you some information or buy you dinner, I'm just a phone call away, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Darrell. Darrell Baker, Weiss Lake Crappie Guides. And before we take off, I want to thank our sponsors for the podcast. Of course, the longest sponsor I've ever had, B&M Poles, Cornfield Fishing Gear, Crappie Magnet, Driftmaster Rods, Rod holders, I Hold Jig, Easy Drift Trolling Systems, Garmin, Hook and Bullet Sunglasses. And if you haven't tried those, check those out, folks. Mossback Fish Habitat, the Offshore Tackle Company, Power Pole, Slime Line Fishing Line, and last but not least, you see us in it, the War Eagle Boat Company. So again, folks, thanks for joining us. We'll be back again soon with another BrushPile Fishing, the video podcast. We're out of here. Thanks, Darrell.
Have a good day, Russ.